Today we welcome back from episode 47 one of our most popular guests, Jill Daniels-Myers, an integrative nutrition health coach and the founder of Yodaya Wellness. Jill highlights an intriguing contradiction in the thinking and behavior of many Americans preparing for retirement. On the one hand, we recognize the importance of building a healthy reserve of financial assets in order to enjoy our later years. We defer gratification to save and invest, and to make the most of what we've built, we either hire or develop our own expertise about financially related topics like investing smarter, minimizing taxes, optimizing Social Security and Medicare, developing a sound estate plan, and so on. But, on the other hand, with another comparatively important asset that can make or break our ability to actually enjoy the financial assets we've worked so many years to build, namely the asset of our physical health, do we make the same steady effort to delay gratification in order to protect and extend our health reserves? Do we hire or develop our own expertise about eating smarter, building lasting strength and endurance, developing emotional stability, and extending our active years? If you're someone that would say you've been living with that contradiction in your own thinking and would welcome some ideas about how to change, stay tuned as we discuss all that and more right now on the Retirement Lifestyle Show.
Welcome to the Retirement Lifestyle Show. I'm your co-host, Roshan Loungani, here for another great episode today. I'm really excited. We've got Jill Myers with us again. She is actually our most popular guest on the Retirement Lifestyle Show. Jill, welcome back.
Thank you so much for inviting me back to talk to your listeners.
Yeah, we really appreciate you joining us. We saw your blog post. So Jill Myers is with Yodaya Wellness, and she has a really great blog. We were lucky enough to get a preview of a post she has coming up, talking about health and a way to put money in your health bank account, so to speak. It's not an actual bank account, but Jill, can you tell us? Well, first, start us off. We always like to talk about why we think this is important. Can you tell us why this topic is important?
So, in my kind of somewhat current and former career, I'm a CPA and a CFO for nonprofits. And in my long career in finance, I definitely understood the importance of an IRA or 401k and saving for retirement from a financial perspective. But over the last number of years, as I head closer to retirement, I've become much more cognizant of the importance of your health in retirement. And no matter how much money you save into your financial retirement accounts, if you're not healthy enough to enjoy the years that you have in retirement or the money that you've saved all those years for retirement, it's kind of like, what's the point? And so I was thinking about this and kind of came up with the idea of a health retirement account. It's not really a financial product or product at all. It's really the concept of taking care of yourself along the way. You know, as you deposit money into your IRA or whatever retirement vehicle you have, are you investing in yourself and your own health? So when you get to 65 or 70, is your body able to function mentally, physically, emotionally for you to be able to enjoy your retirement?
It's a very important concept and important point. When you describe that, I actually think of a client I work with now. I don't know what their health habits were previously, but this person was planning to travel in retirement and can't because of chronic issues in both knees. So she still walks, but she doesn't want to be on a wheelchair or use any kind of support like a cane or anything, but she can't travel because she can't walk. So I see the impact of not taking care of your health through that. What I like about your concept is you break it down into ages and what people are doing at various ages. And I think that actually works really well with our show because we're in different age groups, myself, Adrian, and Erik. So we all sort of fit into different times. So I want to just go in order. You talk about your 20s and you say you're saving for retirement in the 401k, but you're eating happy hour foods, late night pizza, and you're exercising, but I guess you're giving a net minus negative points. So we're taking withdrawals out of this account then. So what would you say to the 20-year-olds, right? I'm going to ask you your advice to each of these age ranges. So the 20 we've all been there. Adrian, you might be there now, but I don't want to put you on the spot either.
Yeah, I'm holding my breath right now for what Jill has to say to me, but I'll also take any advice I can get in this because it's a really interesting topic. I know balance is definitely key, but you can go into it, Jill.
So balance is key, and it's a hard conversation because some of the clients that I'm working with now are more towards my age range, and what keeps sticking in my head is, why do we have to fix people when they're in their 50s and 60s? How do we go upstream and talk to the people in their 20s, in their 30s, and have them start healthy habits then? And I actually have two sons who are in their 20s, and we have some of these conversations. Some of the things are, it'll be fine. Medical science will advance enough to fix whatever I do when I get to my 40s and 50s. And I have another son who is actually changing the way he eats because he knows it makes him feel better. So I think it's really awareness. Once you become aware of how you actually feel doing different things, I think it speaks for itself. So, if you're going to go out with your friends and drink or whatever you're doing on, your social life, balance it out. If you are drinking, make sure you're hydrating because alcohol has a dehydrating impact. I know one thing a physician told, I'll leave names out, was if you're going to drink, for every alcoholic drink you have, drink a glass of water. So when you wake up the next day, you're not so hungover, which is really the impact of dehydration on your body. So, just think about what you're doing. And often at those ages, people are not thinking, they're just doing. And that really brings in the concept of mindfulness. Are you paying attention to how you're living? And many people don't, because you're just doing what everybody else is doing. And it is hard at that age to make a stand for yourself and say, you know what? I'm done at 3 drinks, even though everybody else is having 10. The peer pressure is difficult. If you're on a college campus, it's hard. When you start working, go to happy hour because that's how you socialize with your new employee friends. Society does not set us up to be healthy. If you just look at the commercials on TV, there's always a beer for the weekend fun, or, the commercials on, if that age range is actually watching TV these days, which is another subject. But, and I'm not here to tell people in their 20s, don't have any fun. But there's plenty of ways to have fun without overindulging in things that are not good for your body. There's kind of the 80-20 rule. Try and eat healthier throughout the week so that when you do go and indulge, it doesn't have as much of an impact. And maybe you cut back a little bit on the indulgence so you're not going off the deep end. Those little things along the way will make a difference.
Yeah, that's a great point that you brought up, Jill. And I just like how you said, just be aware at this age. Like sometimes I can be guilty of it, but there's just like so much going on that sometimes you can just kind of create excuses for yourself, but just being mindful. And like you said, try and create those like good habits as early as possible. We even talked about that in our most previous podcasts, like when it comes to your finance, like creating good financial habits. Like the best time to get started is yesterday, as early as possible. Just trying, if you feel like you're kind of in a routine, just kind of look yourself in the mirror and say, okay, what are some things I can adjust? What's like maybe one thing I can do today that I haven't really done in the past that can go a long way, that can create that kind of healthy and just to improve that overall lifestyle, I think is really important. And like you said, when you're in your 20s, like sometimes you got a lot to think about, whether you're in school or you just graduated or you started a new career, and you just got all these things going on constantly, and it's just really got it boiling down to, okay, what can I do that can make these like small improvements? What can I do to kind of make sure that if one area of my life is kind of falling behind, how can I bring it up and maybe adjust that other area of my life so it all balances out? Because it is kind of like your 20s, it is kind of a transition period when you're, living with your parents or you're taking that step into adulthood. Like when you're older, when you're taking that transition from work into retirement, it's kind of there's a little bit of a parallel sometimes. So it's some really interesting concepts that you brought up. Thank you.
And Jill, I'll go ahead, Eric. Did you have something?
No, I mean, I just think I think this is a fantastic topic. And because we do care about our clients and, we spend all this time to try to help them make it financially, and then to have health issues then really compromise their ability to enjoy that period. I'm so glad that we are addressing this. I think one of the toughest things is to figure out how to do this in a way that's actually motivating to people, because I think most people, I think, are aware of the basic maxim that you should eat well and exercise. And so many of the preventable causes of death and disease are connected to that. Of course, there are some things that are environmental and there are some things that are hereditary, but there are other things that are behaviorally related. And we would love to help clients take that first step if they're not doing that already, or our listeners take that first step if they're not doing that already, and make some adjustments. And so I think the question for me is always, okay, how do we help people with some practical steps that they can do, that they could implement right away to make some of these adjustments? That's one thing. The second thing I think is also really interesting is just to kind of go through some of the facts about how widespread some of these things are. So if I may, I'm just going to share a couple of facts from the CDC. And the first of these is about having to do with just the question of obesity. Now, obesity isn't the same thing as overweight. Overweight is you haven't hit the obesity standard, which is 35. I think it's a body mass index of 30 or greater, but between 25 and 30 is considered overweight. Just so we're dealing at this point with some of these CDC numbers of those people that just are a BMI of 30 or higher. So among people age 65 to 74, all right, let's talk about men and women. Among men, it's as of 2019, in the period measurement of 2015 through 2018, what percentage of men would you guess ages 65 to 74 fall into that category of a BMI of above 30 or technically obese? Any of you guys? Anyone?
You asking me?
I have no idea, so I'm going to guess half, just because I can't be that far off.
Absolutely, at least half, if not closer.
All right.
To
and then
75%.
How about for women?
Probably.
All right. So you guys, that's pretty close.
Yeah.
So it is, according to the CDC, the number is 42% for men ages 65 to 74, and for women it's 46. So right there, I mean, I would say where my brain goes with that is, okay, the very first step in addressing that is to more calories are being consumed than are being expended, and so you have to find a way to shift that ratio so that it's they're in balance, or for a period of time it's opposite until you can bring that down. And that is essentially diet and exercise. Here's another one. What about hypertension? So this is high blood pressure and or taking an antihypertensive medication. So for men ages 65 to 74, what percentage of men have hypertension or are taking such a medicine?
30%.
Again, over.
All right.
50.
And for women? Same age group?
Probably
35%.
Okay, really close. For men, I'm rounding to the nearest percent. For men, it's 67%. And for women, it's 74%. So these are now, I guess I would say, if we expand the range of obesity to also include overweight, and then look at these hypertension numbers, we're talking about probably the vast majority of Americans, or age 65 or older, are affected by, or not, maybe not the vast majority, but certainly a majority of Americans are affected by these things. So we're not really at this point sort of speaking to a sort of very narrow slice of our overall audience. So I guess I would say with this sort of fact pattern as the backdrop, what can we do to help people feel, instead of guilted and then shutting off our podcast, how can we help them feel like, okay, that's something that I could do tomorrow, and then make some progress on that?
So I want to go back to one of the things you mentioned a few minutes ago about calories in and calories out, because I think that's a very old and outdated philosophy on weight loss. And in what we call the functional medicine world, which looks deeper into the root cause of illness or disease rather than just dealing with symptoms, there can be a lot of other factors as to why people diet and, I eat well and I exercise, but I still can't lose the weight. The hormone makeup in your body can impact your ability to shed pounds. So for example, if you're under severe stress and your cortisol levels are increased on a chronic basis, your body is going to have inflammation, and it's not going to let your body release the weight. So the calorie in, calorie out, if you do your own research, it's been debunked in a lot of areas of newer views of medicine, because you have people who I work out so much and I still can't drop the pounds. The actual intense workouts they're doing may be causing even more stress on their body from a physical perspective that keeps them from dropping the weight. So there are a lot of lab tests that people can do with functional medicine practitioners. A lot of these tests are not typically run by your standard traditional doctors, that can get at what's behind some of this. A full thyroid panel may have 7 or 8 markers, where a standard thyroid panel might only be TSH, with one marker. And so there are a lot more lab tests out there now that can get a look at what's actually happening in your body, besides just looking at the calories in and the calories out. It's what is your whole hormone makeup doing with what you're eating. It's the same thing with nutrient absorption. Is your body absorbing? I'm eating all this great food, but I still don't feel well. Is your body able to absorb and metabolize the nutrients, vitamins and minerals that you're taking in? So there's a lot more to your health than just the calories in and calories out, because if you go just on the calories, you could say, okay, I'm going to eat a fast food hamburger and it's 1,000 calories. That's all I'm going to eat today. But you're not getting nutrients, and you're eating food that's actually having impact on your insulin resistance and different things. So the calories alone is not the marker, I think, anymore.
Okay, I would certainly agree with that. But I love that you're challenging that. Challenging that simplified version of it. So, and I absolutely agree with you about the value of eating nutrient-rich foods. And but that having been said, I guess how far do you want to go with it's not related to calories?
I think there are just a lot of other factors that people have to go into, because the more you restrict the calories, your body is not getting enough input. And so it may start to shut down in terms of its metabolism, because it has to conserve what you already have, because it's not getting more nutrients coming in. So there's a lot more to it than just calories in and calories out, because what's the makeup of those calories. If you're having 1,000 calories of sugar versus, anything with fiber in it, your body is going to do different
I agree with
things
that.
with that
I
food.
completely agree with that. And so, as I said, nutrient-rich foods, I think, are vital as opposed to just empty calories. I completely get that. But let's say you have you're heavy on protein and vegetables, let's say, and plenty of fiber. So we've just stipulate that they're eating from a healthy standpoint. Now, how are you going to address the calories in, calories out? Because, by the way, I'm not one who's advocating for people starving themselves. Instead, what I'm probably an advocate of is figuring out a way that they can significantly increase on a consistent basis a number of calories that they're burning in a productive, strength building way. Your thoughts about that?
So I think for each person, everybody's body is different. Your genetic makeup is different. What you've done your whole life, the internal workings of your digestive system, of your hormone system, your endocrine system, it's going to be different on every person. So depending on, if you're going to say X calories in versus out, what your body's doing with those calories is going to be what we call bio-individual. So I think there's just a lot of other information that your body can give you through lab work, saliva tests that can tell you what your body's doing and how it's processing those calories. So I think it needs to get beyond the calories in, calories out.
Okay, so let's say
what your body's
you've made the argument that it's very, very individualized, and let's just go with that for a second. So would one individual be able to, let's say, burn 2,000 and take in 4,500 calories per day and have that be a workable formula? And similarly, conversely, would someone who is, again, stipulating that they're eating, sort of healthy, nutrient-rich foods, is it conceivable that somebody might be flip that around, burning 4,500 calories a day, taking in only 2,000, and then essentially gaining not muscle mass, but gaining fat because of the individualized conditions that you're talking about?
The numbers you give is a very large
right. I'm trying
range,
to accentuate
between,
that point.
4,500 and 2,000. Yeah, it's possible. I mean, we all know people who can eat a ton and never gain weight. And you wonder, it's like, well, how do they do that? I just look at the piece of cake and it, gain weight. You see people and you talk to people. I'm sure you know people who have those situations where you can eat whatever you want and your body metabolizes it differently. And the metabolizing of calories,
I grant that, it's
as you age.
Yeah, usually those people that I see who seem to be able to eat anything they want would you kind of examine what they're actually doing through the course of the day? They have just very, very high constant levels of motion as opposed to being totally sedentary. And so as a result, they have, they're just, their base energy consumption each day is at a pretty, surprisingly high level. At least that's been my experience with it.
Well, can I actually interrupt for a second? This is definitely interesting, but Jill, I followed. I feel like I've lived through a lot of what you described in your article: the 20s, the 30s, the 40s, and what I want to know is, well, what can I do about it? Right? I'm getting major negatives from my coffee consumption by you right now on your scoring system. So what are actionable things I can do to fix that health account and deposit positive numbers instead of offset those negatives?
Okay, so what I want to do is first back up and let people know what we're talking about with this positive and negative.
Yes.
So if people in the audience remember the game of life, where, it's, I was calling this the game of health, where, it's, you go down the game of life and you get a job and you move forward 2 steps and you get a pay raise. So with the game of health, I was talking about, and that's where Roshan is referring to, getting points and losing points, is with different things that you do in your life, you're moving forward or moving backwards. So I think actually my answer to this goes back to the last podcast we had. Well, the first thing is hydration. Can you switch out 1 cup of whatever non-water you're drinking for a cup of water, and rehydrate your body, especially first thing in the morning? Water with lemon in the morning, first thing. I start my day with 2 big glasses, 2 of these. It's 32 ounces of lemon water in the morning. It rehydrates you from overnight. It actually gives you a perk in the morning with the lemon. And the lemon also helps with detoxifying your body to get things out, to help get things out. So if you're drinking coffees and sugar drinks, your body's not getting the liquid it needs to move things through your digestive system. You can be eating all the fiber you want, but if you're not helping it flow down the river, if you will, that's one thing that's really important. I start my day every day with hydrating with water. And that's actually the only thing I really drink throughout the day, whether it's warm or a cooler temperature, just helping stay hydrated. It helps your mental acuity. It helps just everything in your body function better. So that's a number 1 for me, is the hydration. So switch out one of your morning cups of coffee with just water. And if you don't like plain water, you can flavor it with lemon, with orange, with cucumbers. There's berries. You can, put that in the fridge and have a little flavor to it. But that's definitely number 1. Increasing your movement in whatever fashion that works for you, whether it's taking the stairs, parking further away, putting in a walking routine. Start walking every day. Even in the dead of winter when it's cold, you can always put on clothes and take a walk around the block wherever you live. Find a walking path and just move every day. We sit at, and I believe I said this on the last podcast, we sit in our chairs, for those with desk jobs, for hours and hours a day. Set a timer and get up every half an hour just to stretch, walk around the office, get out of the chair and move the body, especially for the muscles that are going to get stiff, that are going to cause you lower back pain. So there's many components to health. It's your physical mobility. You want to be able to, like you said, your client can't walk anymore. You want to be able to physically move, but you also want the internal organs of your body to be functioning well, your heart, your liver, your lungs, those internal organs, not just the muscles and the skeletal frame. And I think often people go to the gym or exercise and they think about, I have good biceps, I can lift this, but they're not always focused on the internal organs of the body. And that's where you get into the hypertension. My heart isn't pumping, the blood pressure goes up and things like that. I think as a society, we're very focused on the external. How do I look? I lose weight. Well, you can be thin, but very unhealthy. And people can be a little bit overweight, but be much healthier than the skinny person because their body's processing the food better. So I think looking internally at our health, which is something we often don't do until there's a problem with it. Your cholesterol, your blood pressure, and all those markers, which creep up in the 40s. And I think that's, if we continue down the path of kind of the decades that I was laying out for you, a lot of those things show up in your 40s because now you have years worth of buildup of not having healthy habits. And they show up, but typically people start spending a lot more time at the doctors in their 40s. And sometimes now even younger, you're seeing people, because we have a society that has become very sedentary with the screens and the technology. It's advanced us in a lot of ways, but it's keeping people inside in front of a screen often. And you really have to make the effort.
Yeah, those are some great points, Jill. And I'm
wondering
if you could also maybe give some tips for some people. They call it the dreaded wall, where let's just say they're implementing some new habits in their life, or they're exercising, or they're eating well, but they just get to that point where it's hard to go even further, or they kind of or get discouraged, or they might have like a little trip up here and there. Some recommendations out there is just to always track it, and you'll see your progress, and that'll help motivate you. Or have a buddy or a friend kind of take this journey along with you. What are some things you kind of see that can kind of help those people get over that hump or that wall to really make a habit become a part of their overall life?
So I think one thing you just mentioned is very, very helpful. Have a buddy or a coach, somebody that you're doing this with, that you're accountable to and accountable with, and you help somebody along. Because if you do it by yourself, you opt out when you hit a difficult situation, or not always, but you can. When you have a buddy, you've got somebody who's encouraging you, and they say, hey, you can do it today. You're not feeling well? Okay, let's do half of yesterday's workout. Just do something. And I think when you have someone to do that with, that you're accountable with, you're much more likely to continue. And you're going to hit plateaus because, your life is not linear. Maybe your job becomes much busier for, your busy season, depending on what career you're in. And so my job is squeezing and I can't get in that 5-mile run. I can only, do a 1-mile run or whatever your exercise, your movement is. And just know that you can always start again tomorrow. Okay, I couldn't do it today. This week was a bust. Get up the next day and try again. And then not giving up. And I think having someone to be accountable for or with is helpful. The other thing I would say is, what is your why? Why do you want to do this? And as a health coach, this is something that we try to get to the bottom of with people and have that front and center. What is your goal? Is it, I just want to lose weight? Okay, why do you want to lose weight? I want to be able to wear a certain outfit. I want to look good for this. What's the why behind it? And when you get into that and you can keep that why front and center, it'll keep you motivated to keep moving forward. And whether you plaster that on the wall in front of you or on a sticky on your computer, I want to be around to spend time with my grandchildren and be able to functionally move and play with them in my older years. For many people, that's, a joy in retirement years. For those who have children and potentially have grandchildren, or if you're mentoring someone, whatever your why is. I have a friend who just posted on Facebook that one of his bucket lists was to climb Mount Rainier, and he just did it. Now he's in his 50s. But having those goals, and, maybe the goal is to be healthy in retirement so that I can enjoy all that millions of dollars that, our Arte Wealth has helped me, accumulate. Because, it's great to have that big bank account, but if you can't enjoy it, it's just, what was it all for?
Yeah, I completely agree. I took a bunch of notes on there. One question I want to ask you about is when you said water, that's your number one thing. You had said 2 glasses of water with lemon, and you can flavor it if you don't like the taste, right? So I'm admittedly flavoring my water with some of these things you buy, and you just like put the little liquid in there, shake it up, and it's flavored. I viewed that as a better alternative than soda I was drinking before, so I'm sure you'd agree with that. But is having like flavored water or iced tea or something like that versus regular water, is that bad for you or not as good, or what are your thoughts on that?
So I guess it depends on what's in the flavoring. If you're using squeezes of a real fresh orange or lemon, lime, the cucumbers, berries, you're getting natural sugars. If you're flavoring it with a packet of refined sugar that's now not giving you anything but processed sugar, you'd have to look at how much sugar is in that versus what's in the soda, because the soda also has the corn syrup, which is made from corn that's traditional or conventionally farmed. that now maybe came with pesticides. So it, a packet of flavoring, is it artificial colored? Is it artificial sweetener? So what is in that packet? It may be slightly better than a diet whatever soda, but you have to look at the labels and see what's actually in those packets and how much sugar is in that. Because I think sugar is one of the biggest culprits in so many of the chronic diseases. It causes the stress in your body, causes inflammation, cause blood sugar imbalances that can lead to, over time, to these chronic diseases that cause inflammation in the body, or a result of inflammation in the body.
Got it.
And iced tea, if you like iced tea and you're making it with, tea bags, how much sugar is in it versus just flavored with lemon? So again, I think the sugar content is a big item that you just need to be aware of.
Yeah, sugar tends to be in everything, right?
Absolutely. And that's where learning to look at labels to see, it's not just going to say sugar, it's going to say cane sugar. There's so many other names for sugar that you really have to be smart when you're reading labels in everything. Your ketchup, your salad dressing, your spaghetti sauce. If you go home and look at your pantry and look at the labels, you'll start to see. And that's where eating as much whole food from its natural source. Yes, there's sugar in all the fruits, but you're also getting all the fiber and the vitamins and minerals that come with it. So it's just, I think, going back to, what we said at the very beginning is awareness. Starting to pay attention and to learn some of this information so that you become a smart shopper, you become a smart consumer, and you don't fall prey to all of the marketing of, this tastes great. Well, of course it tastes great. It's got sugar in it, and it's an addictive substance. So a lot of people have trouble removing it from their diet because it is so addictive. And people have trouble losing weight because these things are addictive. So it's not necessarily, their own fault. It's the food industry that puts this in all of the food to keep you eating it. There are studies that say it's more addictive than heroin.
So it's interesting.
And that, to me, is
the other day,
quite scary.
my wife and I walked into this one store because we've got the grandkids coming in later today. And so we wanted to just make sure that we had a few, colored pencils and a few other things that they could do for crafts. And the nearby store, since we just moved a few months ago to this area, the nearby store where we did this was the dollar store. So we walked in and, we're going through and looking through the crafts and what have you. But I also just thought, might as well figure out what's here at the dollar store. And so I walked every single aisle. And in the food aisles, I was struck by precisely the thing that we're talking about today. Just how by default, if you were to, and this isn't, by the way, this is not a criticism of the dollar store. This is not a criticism or just an observation about what lined all of the shelves, which was the assumption. Apparently they're stocking the shelves with things that people are buying. So it's sort of a window into what's in people's own cupboards without having to go into their houses. What you saw was row upon row upon row of starch, sugar, or starch and sugar in one combination or another. I thought, I just looked at the breakfast cereal row, for example, Frosted Flakes, sugar-coated this, sugar-coated that. And then I kind of wheeled around, pasta this, pasta that. I'm not a pasta Nazi. I was just kind of observing just the way to buy inexpensively a high volume of food was all of this. Plus, if you throw in some fat, so much the better. And so I really agree with what you're saying is the value of being able to eat whole foods and try to be very sort of conscious about what it is that you're shopping for. I think that for me, at least, it all starts with shopping. If it's not in the cupboard, I'm not going to eat it. And and it won't get in the cupboard if I don't put it there in the first place. So, it really all just starts with what's on the shopping list and what makes it into the cart, it seems to me.
Absolutely. And one of the concerns is that people who are of lower income have less choice because of the way things are priced. To eat healthy costs more. Now, it costs more today, and hopefully it will reduce your health issues and health costs as you get older. You'll live healthier longer, so you'll have less expense later. But some people can't even afford the healthy food today because of their income levels. And so that's a systemic issue in society that's it's a ship that is so hard to move, to turn around. And that's where it gets to, lobbying and putting better foods in the cafeterias in elementary schools, and teaching the students and the families from a young age, and getting people to advocate for changes in how our society values different products and different foods. The manufacturers are making, I'll leave off names, but the manufacturers of all these foods, they're, look at their stock prices. Your clients probably invest in them. They're making plenty of money. Like, who wins if you're buying Whole Foods? The farmers. They're putting out, Whole Foods. It's not a public company that people can buy stock in typically. So it's just the whole setup of our society in terms of valuing health, valuing
that's
nutritious
interesting. And
eating.
I just kind of want to run this kind of, and I mean, it's more personal, but this kind of idea that I've been kind of implementing, it's kind of just like moderation. And I know how you said, like, everyone's kind of different, so it's not going to be the same case for, some other person. But is this something that I could just continue on doing? Like, for example, let's just say a week, like, during the work week, I'll eat healthy, I'll exercise, I'll get good rest, I'll hydrate. But then, come the Friday and Saturday, I'm going out with my friends, and the term sometimes is like, turning up or getting lit. Does that kind of, like, over time just negate everything you do? I realize there's like a balance, but, sometimes to say moderation is key. It's sometimes, you're putting in all this work of like a healthy lifestyle that, sometimes you want to indulge or like enjoy that like guilty pleasure that you have. Is that something that, I know everyone's different, but something I can continue on, or over time, the weekends are just going to wipe out all the good habits I was doing during the day?
So I guess you kind of have to see how you feel. There's nothing wrong with indulging from time to time. And, if you go by the 80-20, but, do you need to get, as you say, totally lit? I hear those words from, that generation. What does that mean? Is that 3 beers, or is it 10 where you're blacking out and passing out,
I think,
and seriously causing damage to your body? So you can enjoy yourself.
I think what
on the
Adrian was talking
weekend,
about was it's the
but
3
does it have to
bags
be
versus
to
10
such
bags of
extreme
Doritos.
that
Weren't you,
probably
Adrian?
are wiping out the benefits?
Yeah, that's exactly it, Eric. You caught me.
Right. Well, you know what? I'll actually, I'm not the expert in here, but Adrian, I'll tell you, I was doing that for a while, for eating healthy. So I would try to eat healthy during the week, and then let myself eat unhealthy on the weekend. And what I found was my weekend would start on Friday night, and then there'd be leftovers on Monday. So then I'm only really eating healthy on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. So I learned that one. So if you're following that path, I can speak from experience and say, with real life experience, yeah, that's not going to work.
Well, I guess the question is, why do you need to eat unhealthy? Like, what is that giving you? I was actually on a family vacation many years ago, and we were out to dinner, and I chose a healthy option because I like that food. I actually like how it tastes. Yeah. And a family member looked at me and said, "But you're on vacation. You don't have to eat that food now." And I'm like, "But I want to. I enjoy the way it tastes." And I think what we're talking about is people assume that healthy food doesn't taste good and isn't something you'd want to consume. But I'm restricting myself during the week to eat only healthy food. Well, I like the food I eat all week long because I prepare it in a way that tastes good and I actually enjoy it. And when you start to remove the sugar content from your meal plans, your taste buds start to change. And if you use herbs and seasonings, your food that's, quote, healthy can be delicious, gorgeous food and beautiful meals. You don't have to have the burger and fries indulgence to eat unhealthy. It's all, I think it's all a mindset and what you want for your body. You see a lot of the fast casual places that are out there now are offering different things. They're offering foods that have, the choices for, different vegetables and, just different ways to eat quick. So it doesn't have to be the burger and fries that are cooked in oil that's not preferable, and things are laden with corn that are, conventionally farmed, that have pesticides on them. You can choose differently and still go out and still enjoy the social life, and just make other choices. And then if you are making some of those less than, I don't want to say acceptable, but less than ideal choices, eat less of it. So instead of consuming the entire plate of nachos, maybe have that as an appetizer that you share with someone instead of eating the whole thing yourself. So it's just modifying portions, how often you do it, what you're eating, and then why are you eating it in the first place? What is it giving you? When you say guilty pleasure, if you feel guilty, is it
Jill,
really a pleasure?
Had been walking through your list, and Roshan had recited or recalled some of that. So one was just kind of going back. So we're developing our list of things. So one, in your view, was hydration. Number 2 was movement. Number 3 now clearly is in terms of healthy eating, whether that's necessarily in some sort of specific sequence. Mm-hmm. Are there other areas that you would say are sort of part of your formula for change and living in a healthy way?
So when I start to work with a client, we actually review something called the Circle of Life, and it has about 12 different components in it. We talk about, your finances, your career, creativity, and just kind of looking at how you live your whole life. Because you can be moving and eating relatively well and hydrating, but still not be healthy because your body's under a tremendous amount of stress, say from your job. And so you might be at an okay weight, but if you have an inordinate amount of stress in your life, that's going to cause health problems. And so just kind of taking a look at your overall life, and I think Adrian mentioned it at the very beginning, it's balance. Are you in a job that is fulfilling? Because the mental piece to your health is also a big consideration in how happy and healthy you are. What's your mindset? How do you view life? Are you under stress from your job? Are you in a relationship that you're unhappy in? You can be eating all the best food and exercising, but if you're in a relationship with someone, whether it's at work or at home or another family member, that's extremely stressful for you, your body's going to suffer for that. And so really there's so many components to living a happy and healthy life, more than just the food and the exercise. We call those items primary food, where we talk about secondary food is the actual food that's on your plate that you actually put in your mouth. But how do you live the rest of your life? Are you mindful on how you go through your days? Are you spending all of it in the gym, or do you get outside in nature? Do you have a hobby that you enjoy, where you actually have some joy in your life in addition to just working? So all those other components, I take a look at with people, and I've had some interesting things come up. One of my clients said, "Oh, I did the Circle of Life for you. What are you going to do with it?" And we went through it, and one of my clients actually said, "Wow, you know what? I think I'm in a great place in my career. I've risen up to this place, yay me, but I hate my job, and it's causing me a lot of stress." And she's actually looking to change her environment because she understands that that's causing her such distress mentally and physically. You're under a lot of stress. Your stomach might hurt. It can cause problems with your digestion. The whole body is connected. And I think in our traditional medical system in this country, it's compartmentalized. I'm the heart doctor. I'm the lung doctor. I'm the guy who looks at your skeleton. But is anybody really looking at your overall life and talking to you about these things? So all those other primary food areas really can feed into whether you're healthy or not. Are you anxious all the time because you're worried about something? Well, that can just really squash all the healthy eating habits you have if your body's under a constant state of anxiety. So all of those other factors, I think, can really, they actually do feed into, literally, your overall health and wellness.
So how do you at the very beginning, you had talked about people going to the gym and they can look at their biceps and see how they're doing. You can't do the same internally, and all these doctors are for special areas. How do you find out how you're doing internally from a health perspective?
So I would say, not most people. Some people go and have an annual physical. And so there are certain markers that, you talked about hypertension earlier. What is your blood pressure? What are your cholesterol levels? What are, your hormone levels? And an educated physician, definitely in the functional medicine space, looks more holistically to see how those things are running and what's going on inside. I mean, are you going to wait until you have a heart attack to go to the cardiologist and see? My practitioner does a EKG after a certain age every year just to check to make sure that things are okay. And then if something looks odd, they might send you to the cardiologist to look further and do more testing. But, A, how do you feel? B, what are your lab markers? At least that's a start to see where things are. Instead of waiting until you have a problem with it to go on medication, monitoring those things along the way where, if certain levels, hey, your blood pressure is starting to go up, you might want to change your habits and try and manage it with lifestyle before we have to put you on medication. And so if you're looking at those markers throughout your life and starting having an annual physical, in your 20s, so that you can look that you're starting to get pre-diabetic and make those changes.
Yeah, that's a good
early
point.
on,
And I guess
instead of
I'm not sure if this would be your area as well, but
ailment or
at my age, should I be looking to even though I consider myself that I'm okay
so
from where I'm at, should I be looking into, even though I'm okay with that, should I be looking into vitamins, or if I'm exercising? I know big thing, people always say, oh, pre-workout or all this other supplements that will really help me. Is there something other than other than food and exercising that you see at my age, or is that too early or what's kind of your take on that?
So before you start supplementing with different things, you have to ask yourself the question, what am I trying to accomplish? Is there a problem? In this country, many, many people, even at your age and younger, are vitamin D deficient because we spend so much time indoors. And so that's one marker that your general physician can run that with your lab work to find out what your vitamin D levels are. And that's something that you can easily supplement with and move the marker on those. You see this in the news all over the place. People are so deficient in vitamin D, especially at this climate, because we're not exposed to the sun at an intense enough amount throughout the year. So often people will supplement through the winter because we're not exposed and the sun's not strong enough and high enough to give us that natural boost of vitamin D. So that's something I would ask, your doctor to check on. There are other lab tests. I mean, they're more expensive. Sometimes they're covered by the normal labs, it depends on why they're being run and what the diagnosis is. But you can check on the other vitamins in your vitamin levels in your body to see if something's out of whack. Often those tests are only run if you go in and say, I'm feeling tired. So they might run your iron levels to see if something, you're anemic or there's something wrong. Some people are proponents of multivitamins. Some are not. I don't know that there's a standard answer, and that's why, we're all different. So where you might have good vitamin D levels, your friend who looks in the same size, same shape, feels the same, they might be not the same. And, over time, those can cause issues. Vitamin D is one that just plays a role in so many functions in the body that has gotten a lot more news coverage, in recent times. So that's one I would say check on everyone. I've told my kids, make sure they have that checked, because the doctors won't typically check those things unless you come in with a problem. But as a patient, it's your health, and depending on the generation and your own personality, take control of your health and don't leave it in the hands of the doctor. Go ask these questions. Say, hey, I want to know what my vitamin D level is. Can you please run that? And, it may cost you a little bit more, but it's a good marker to find out where you are so you have a baseline. All the other supplements, there's so many on the market. You also have to look with some of the protein powders and things people use in the gym. What are the ingredients? Where are they made? Are they non-GMO? Are they dairy or not, depending on what your body can tolerate? So you really need to look at the ingredients of everything, see how they're processed, see what the ingredients are. It's educating yourself.
Yeah, I think it's a lot. There's a lot. You said educating yourself. There's so much to learn on this. When you had mentioned all the different names for sugar, I Googled names for sugar, and the first thing that came up is that there are 56 different names, right? And I didn't know that before. And yeah, some of the names I knew, like dextro, anything with OSE on the end, I knew was sugar, but I had no idea dextrin or ethyl malthol, or I can't even pronounce these names. I didn't know there were other names for sugar. So any suggestions on where to go to research this, or is it as simple as look at the label and then go to Google and type in what the ingredients are?
So that's one way. One of the things that we talk about is if there's more than 5 or 6 ingredients and you can't pronounce them, don't eat it. Like you said, these names for sugar that you didn't even know what they were.
That's why
you can't.
That's why Adrian
them.
and I have
if you
memory cards so we can get acquainted with all the ingredients and Doritos.
My biggest takeaway is that I need to go on your hiking trips, Eric. So I'm in the outdoor and I'm feeling relaxed, so my stress levels are low and I'm getting some sun. So I think I really need to head out there with you.
There we go. All right. Yeah, I mean, John Muir Trail 2022.
That is a huge place to start.
That's the goal.
I'm coming with you. It's all about balance. It's paying attention, and I think there's not enough attention paid to it in our society. When you're going through elementary school, you learn calculus, or high school, sorry, you learn calculus, but do you learn how to prepare a healthy meal? Those are the life skills that, when I was in high school, going back many years, we had home ec, and they taught you how to cook. Now, was it focused necessarily on nutrition? I honestly don't remember it so long ago, probably not. But they taught you life skills. We're not taught how to pay attention to our health. And that's where you live. You live in this body. And if it's not healthy, where are you going to live? If it's not going to be able to carry you through your retirement years, how are you going to function? How are you going to be able to enjoy those trips on your bucket list and spend all that money that you guys are making for your clients. I think it's an awareness that has not been a front and center focus in our society, that needs to be raised in its level of importance. When you look at the healthcare costs in this country, the statistics that you brought up about obesity, you can look at the same statistics for diabetes, for so many chronic diseases.
Right.
Why is our society so sick?
At this point, we're coming up on an hour, so I just wanted to see if there's any sort of like final thoughts, Jill, that you have, and to just kind of round out the list. So we've talked about now hydration, we've talked about movement, we've talked about diet, we've talked about doing a whole life assessment to look for other sorts of areas of stress. Is there any like one last category you think is, if we don't mention it, we've done a disservice to our listeners?
So I would say it's simple. You are worth it. You are worth it. Make yourself a priority. Take care of yourself. Nobody else is looking out for you. And if you want to live and be healthy, it needs to start with you. You need to make a commitment to yourself and understand that you're worth it, and put the time and effort, energy, money into taking care of your health, physically, mentally, emotionally. Become aware and just understand the different components. Like take stock. Where are you? Where am I today? And how do I want to live? And just make yourself a priority.
Yeah. Thank you, Jill.
I love that. I think that's a great way to wrap it up. You are worth it, and make yourself a priority. Well, Jill, thank you for joining us again. This was a great episode. A lot of good content. We will provide with our weekly memes. We have a lot of ideas of things we can share. I'm just going to go through some of my notes. Awareness of how things make you feel. Pay attention to how you're living. Movement, hydration. Adrian's term, get past the dreaded wall. I like that one as well. Know what your why is. Look at your labels. And I'm going to go back to what I started with, which you said, which is you are worth it. So a lot of stuff that I learned, I think I'm going to be calling you to decipher labels for me going forward. But thank you so much.
No, this has been so much fun to talk to you guys. And it's hard to go it alone. So don't be afraid to reach out and look for information, and look for, a health coach to help you.
Yep. And Jill, you can be reached at yodayawellness.com, YODAYA, WELLNESS, wellness.com. Are there any other places or any other things people can do to follow you? I know you've got an Instagram page as well. What is your Instagram handle?
So the Instagram is Jill D. Myers, JILLDMYERS. I also have a Facebook page that is Yodaya Wellness. And then, my website.
Yeah, excellent. Jill, this has been great. A lot of good information. I know it's been helpful for all of us. We probably changed Adrian's life.
After
with this
episode, go out on the town.
I'll go get lit.
Show you a great time,
That's
Erik.
That's the after
but
party.
Thank you very much, and hopefully we can do it again.
All right. Okay, got my lemon water ready to go. We're gonna live it up.
Take your water bottle with you.
Take your water bottle.
All right, sounds good.
Yes. Yes. I like the plan, and then we'll go hiking right after. All right, for all of our listeners, thank you for joining us for another episode of the Retirement Lifestyle Show. Please like, subscribe, give us 5 stars, tell your friends and family, and we will be back next week for another episode. Thank you for joining us.